Welcome to the Page 2 podcast, where we uncover the strategies, systems, and tactical decisions that move brands beyond Page 2 and into real visibility across search and answer engines. Search isn't dying, it's fragmenting, and most companies are measuring the wrong half. Today's guest is Patrick Reinhart, the Vice President of Services and Thought Leadership at Conductor, and he's been in the SEO trenches for more than 2 decades. Conductor just analyzed millions of prompts and billions of sessions to publish one of the largest AEO and GEO benchmark reports in the industry. The headline? AI referral traffic is about 1%. Not 20, not 50, 1. And yet budgets are shifting, executives are nervous, and entire teams are reorganizing around a channel that barely shows up in analytics. So what's really happening? Patrick makes the case that AI search isn't a traffic play, at least not yet, and it's about visibility, citations, brand sentiment, and authority. We talk about why affiliate-heavy sites are getting squeezed in traditional search while thriving in LLMs, why healthcare and finance are triggering AI overviews at surprising rates, why Reddit is powerful but risky, and why schema markup and proprietary research may matter more than ever. CMOs are reallocating paid budgets into AI initiatives, and SEO teams are being asked to prove ROI in a world where traffic might decline, while revenue holds steady or even grows. Patrick's advice is simple, but not easy. Nurture both worlds. Traditional search and AI search are converging, but they are not the same thing. Ignore either one at your own risk. I've personally watched this shift play out in client conversations over the last year. The anxiety, the hype, the budget reshuffling. And this conversation helped clarify what signals and what's noise with grounded data. If you learned something new today, take a second to subscribe to the Page 2 podcast. Leave us a rating or review and let us know what resonated. We'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to episode 110 of the Page 2 podcast. I'm your host, John Clark, and I'm joined as always by my partner at Moving Traffic Media, Joe DeVita.
Hello.
Today, we're joined by a longtime veteran in the SEO space and currently leading Conductor's customer success team as VP of Services and Thought Leadership. Pat Reinhart, great to have you on.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
So I have some personal history with Conductor going all the way back to 2012. So when I was at Razorfish, we were fighting hard to move City and Lou Cohen. So I know he's a huge advocate of Conductor.
Know Lou very well. Very well.
So we were sort of fighting with Bright Edge to move City over to Conductor. So maybe we can talk about war stories on another episode. But that win led to a panel at Conductor's annual C3 conference, which I know is a great conference for all to attend. And most recently was actually in your offices back in July for a panel around just how this ecosystem is evolving with everything AI.
Yep.
But I thought maybe to set the stage for the discussion around AEO, GEO, and some of the things that you guys were finding in the benchmarks report, Conductor's come a long way since 2012, right? You guys just took the top spot in Forrester's Wave report on SEO and AEO technology. So anyone who's ever taken part in one of those reports knows what a lift that is. And then you followed that up with the number 1 ranking in Software Review's annual technology data quadrant, which is a mouthful. So it's really been fun to just have a front row seat in the evolution of the product and how you guys are spearheading the evolution of what we're seeing here.
Yeah. I think the evolution is like forever for you guys. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Your boss, Seth, did an interview. I don't know if you read it yet. It just came out yesterday. I've got a few questions I got to ask you because we don't have Seth with us. First of all, the author of the Wall Street Journal article, he calls Conductor a startup. Like, you guys are 14 years into this with like hundreds of employees. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, so here's why a lot of people say that. Because remember, Conductor was owned by WeWork for 20 months, right? So when we were, so beforehand, I joined Conductor in 2015. I was a customer before that. So I've known Seth a really long time and part of the Conductor ecosystem a really long time. And, when we were going in there, we always acted as a startup, even as we were going, 20, 30, $40 million, in ARR. And then the WeWork thing happens, right? So we go through the whirlwind that was WeWork. And there were many great experiences and many strange ones. Again, for another time, I could do a whole podcast on that. But ultimately what happened was, we bought the company back from WeWork and we were kind of a $50 million startup. And I remember that was talked about a little bit in the media. And I think people held on to that. But certainly these days, Conductor is not a startup, right? Is there a startup feel and environment if you come into the office? Absolutely. But we are certainly not a startup these days.
Well, one of the things I learned from that article yesterday was that you guys are starting to interview for AI literacy. They're like some of the things you guys are doing to push your team to get more comfortable using AI. It was the first time I ever read about it from a tech company perspective. So if you're comfortable talking a little bit about that, I just a couple of questions. Like, how do you interview for AI literacy?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I appreciate Seth's passion about this because he's right. I was like, perfect example. I do phone, like, people reach out to me on LinkedIn all the time, especially students. Students reach out to me all the time. So I spoke to this very bright young woman from USC the other day, and she was asking me, how do I get into this field? Right? And the first thing I told her, I was like, do you use AI? She goes, here and there. I go, the best thing that you can do to stand out is to really become literate in AI. And the way to do that is go out, build an agent, learn how to write prompts, go build a website and see if you can, there are tools out there that will give you a free shot of how you're doing in AI and organic. And that is the great way to do it. Now, Joe, to answer your question, how do you actually test for that? You come in, you give them a task and you ask them to build an agent with a prompt and see if it can complete the task, right? Like it's very simple actually to see if someone knows what they're talking about. It's the same thing. Like, listen, I've been in SEO for like 23 years, right? Like you can and I don't lay traps for people in interviews because I know there are people like you're trying to really kick the tires, but you can tell when someone knows what they're talking about versus when someone who doesn't know what they're talking about pretty easily. And I agree with Seth. I think that this is going to be the same as like when going to college was a prerequisite to getting any corporate job, which of course is not true these days. Still very important, but ultimately I think AI literacy is going to be the same as like I know how to use Word and Excel and and PowerPoint back when I was looking for a job back in the early 2000s.
So last about that article, then we can move on to the more important stuff. But so once you've hired these people, you've got everyone pushing everyone to get AI more and more into their workflows. And Conductor's come up with a reward system for those who kind of make the most improvements using AI in their workflow. And the contest is like a free vacation. Did I read that right? You guys are sending people on a vacation?
So that's what Seth wants to do right now.
Okay.
Right now, it's an award at the end of the year that everyone, so actually an individual on my team who I'm super proud of, his name's Ralph. He went from, he's a huge AI enthusiast, right? Like he's been in the SEO space for a really long time, like me. He's one of my best friends. And he built an entire platform, just vibe coding, right? He's not a software engineer. And so he won the runner up. And then one of the engineers won the winner of the AI Innovation Award, which was a new award that we started this year. But Seth really wants to reward people with that. And yes, he has mentioned that along the way that, people who really do great, and he will do it, he will do Seth, if anything, he is a man of his word. He says hey, I'm going to take the Forrester Wave report, for example, right? So hats off to our marketing team. Those I've participated in one of those where I was actually in it. What a really tough process to go through.
Super tough.
And Seth said at the beginning, he goes, if we win this thing, I'm going to take you all to Vegas. And they held him to it. And they all went to Vegas. And to his word, he took them all to Vegas for a weekend. He loves rewarding people who get excited about what they're doing. And this AI thing is exciting, especially for people like me who have been doing SEO for a long time. It's exciting. This is a whole new, I feel like my whole career has started over in a very good way.
Yeah, this comes up a lot on the pod. SEO was sort of stagnant for a few years, right? It was just sort of doing a lot of the same things. And now there's this whole, you're right, excitement with everything that's changing so quickly. So maybe that's a good segue into the report. So you guys launched an AEO GEO / benchmark report. And I think this is the first time Conductor's really established industry benchmarks, at least within that segment, right? Is that true?
That's true. Yeah. And this study was massive. It's one of the biggest studies we ever did, right? It was analyzing millions of prompts. I think it was 3.5 million prompts, 3.3 billion sessions to really see where things were coming from. Because one of the problems, or not problems, that's the wrong word. One of the challenges, when anything new comes out is all of a sudden all these studies start flying in, right? And they're like, hey, here's what's going on. Well, what was this based on? It was based on 12,000 prompts. It's well, that's statistically irrelevant, so it's it's still still a good, like the math is good and I get the methodology, but like we needed to collect enough data to actually make this thing, like worthwhile to put out into the ecosystem. And again, hats off to our marketing team. They did a really good job at this. And the insights it's really fascinating to see how fast things are changing, but also the hype, right? Like everything's coming from AI. Everyone's going to AI. That's not really true, is it? Right? Like, yes, many people use AI. That's 100% true. And most of the world's population has not used AI yet. I saw another study on that yesterday. But ultimately, people still Google things, right? It's a lot of people have an AI influenced experience. They're not solely on an AI experience.
Right. I was curious about the framework that you guys used from the domain analysis. So if I remember correctly, you looked at almost, I think it was 14,000 different domains, but most of those were mapped to the GICS industry framework, which I think is like more financial, right? Is there a reason that you sort of focused in on that segment? So for example, one of the notable industries not included was like e-commerce, right? So I think some of the takeaways are very specific to financial related industries. Is there a reason that framework was the priority there?
So the reason that was used because it's the most globally accepted way to look at industries on a fair basis, right? So e-commerce would fall into consumer discretionary, for example, right?
Okay.
That's where that would fall. And we got that question a lot, by the way. Like, where's retail? Where's e-commerce, et cetera, et cetera? Like, can we dig down deeper into that? And we're going to take that back as feedback for the next one. We'll probably break it out a little bit further. But for this first big one, especially in this industry, we were going back and forth and our head of marketing just decided, like, let's just go with like the globally accepted way to look at industries across the world and across the the spectrum, and then we'll go with that for the first one. We'll get feedback and then we'll put that into the next iteration of it. But that's really the reason that we did that, because it's just like a globally accepted way to look at industries on a fair basis.
Makes sense. I was also curious about any blind spots or maybe biases in the data that you would want to sort of call out as people are evaluating this data, like anything that you guys identified that might be an asterisk to some of the output.
Not really, honestly. Like, like this is all the data from so listen, 3.5 years ago when I keep calling her our new chief product officer. She's been here a long time. When our chief product officer, Wei Zhang, came in, she pushed us to rebuild our entire data platform so that we could actually do studies like this. And also so that our product could meet the needs of today. Right. Like a really big bet that Seth, that placed and it worked out. But honestly, this data is all clean. It's all there's nothing bias about it. There's nothing Conductor-esque about it. This is Conductor's customer data that is in our platform, and that is anonymized, of course, and just put into these different industries. But we don't really influence a lot of what many of our customers do. Yes, we help them set their the product up at the beginning of the relationship, but ultimately all we're doing is matching it to their to their website structure. Right. So that there's really no bias towards Conductor or towards one industry or the next. We have almost 800 customers across all of these different industries, and it's pretty evenly spread.
Got it. I think the headline number was that 1%, or I think it was 1.08% of web traffic that was coming from AI referral sources. I guess a couple of questions here. One is, we know that referral traffic, especially in the early days, was tough to track. For example, ChatGPT wasn't properly tagging things. Could that number have been a little bit higher, do you think, because of those tracking issues? Or would it have been sort of a nominal percentage? The takeaway is, hey, traffic is not high right now. So it's something to be anticipating growth, but not necessarily a doomsday scenario.
It would be a fractional difference, honestly, and because listen, as I've learned more and more about this, done more experiments with customers, really gotten if you had asked me this a year and a half ago, I'd probably be I don't really know. I'm pretty confident it would be a fractional difference, because the traditional search, aspect of it versus the AI search, people are mixing these two things together as they should be tracked the same. And they're just fundamentally different. Yes, you do many of the similar tactics across the two, but when you think about what you're actually trying to accomplish in traditional search, what's it about? It's about keyword rankings. It's about traffic. It's about clicks, impressions, domain authority, blah, blah, right? All of that stuff. AI search, I am convinced, is about visibility across the LLMs, citations, brand mentions, definitely, and is social listening. It is, what is the vibe of your brand? I have talked more about brand sentiment, which is something that we're actually enhancing in the product like tomorrow. We're releasing the new version of our AI interface tomorrow on February 27th. And ultimately, like what I've found is that when I talk to customers, they're really interested in this very small piece of it, which is brand sentiment, right? And they're like, wow, like what are people saying about my brand in AI? That's what people care about. It's so much more about brand authority, it's like social awareness and yes, overall visibility, but it's not really a traffic play. And that 1% didn't surprise me at all. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's exactly what other studies had said. So I think we're all just kind of confirming with each other that AI really isn't a traffic play. I don't think you're going to see a significant amount of traffic from AI until the e-commerce economy booms, like, the agentic e-commerce booms, because then there's going to be cards showing up. People are going to look at a product. They're going to want to know more, and they're going to click into the website from there. And I think that's when you're going to start to see referral traffic, like significant referral traffic coming from LLMs, which will still be fractional to Google, in my opinion, for the foreseeable future.
I have a question about who you guys have 800 companies, huge companies using your platform. Maybe you don't know this yet, but a new investment has to happen to optimize for an LLM, unless you're going to give up investment somewhere else. But there's a social team that has a budget that has a stake in this. And there's a brand management team that has a stake in this. Will other people's, will budgets flow into this? Will it come out of SEO? Are you starting to get a sense of how the teams come together and where the money comes from?
Yep. Great question. And in my experience right now, and that actually speaks to the other report that we did with all the CMOs, like they are all increasing their budget from typically paid search is where a lot of the budget's coming from right now. They're not taking it away from smaller teams because paid budgets at these companies are ludicrously high, so they can say, hey, listen, I'm going to take 50 grand from here a year, and put it over here and buy a software. That's not a huge, but that's mainly where it's coming from today. Now, to answer the second part of your question, like, how are the teams coming together? This is kind of the gold rush aspect of this, right? Spoken to more C-level executives in the last 6 months than I have in the last 10 years speaking about organic. Like I was on the phone with the CMO of MasterCard a few months ago, lovely human being. And we had a great conversation, but I was nervous because I was like, wow, I was like, this person at this humongous company really cares about this. And I knew it was a thing when my brother called me. So my brother's a C-level executive as well. He works at a bank. And he calls me, goes, hey, what's up with this AI thing? And this was like a year ago. I go, why are you calling me about this? He goes, it's in the journal. And I was like, the Wall Street Journal? And he goes, yeah. I go, this is how you know this is a thing. And this is why executives are really thinking about it, because it's being talked about in the Wall Street Journal. It's impacting, it's on the news. Everybody's talking about it. And so that investment is typically coming from paid search, or it's just strictly new investment that they're making. They're saying, hey, listen, we need to create a separate line item for this. And our report even shows that increase, and next year it's going to be bigger. And I think the next year it's going to be even bigger because AI is going to be the number one seller for companies, right? It's going to be your number one salesperson is AI, because people are going to go there. They're going to understand, they're going to want to know, who is this brand? What are they about? And I believe that they will still go to your website, even though there are some people who think the website stays are numbered. I don't believe that. We can, again, in a whole nother podcast on that. But ultimately, you know what I mean? Like AI is the vibe of your brand. And that's why so many people want to know, how do people perceive me in AI? Because that's where everyone's going. And ultimately, pretty much, everyone's going to be using this at some point in the future. And you want your brand to be talked about and be seen in a positive light. And that's why, and Seth always says it's like AI is going to be your number one salesperson. And I 100% agree with him.
I was really curious about this is probably an impossible question, but is there like a dollar amount that you can apply to this? Because one of the things in the CMO report that was so fascinating to me was that so many companies responded with like, yes, we're investing here, or we're significantly investing. Like, what does that mean from a dollar amount? Like, is there a number, like a range that makes up, or is it more of just a survey question? And that budget could be all over the map.
Yeah, the budget, it's significant. Like when you think about it being zero, I would say like the average range is probably between $50,000 to $250,000 that's being invested in this right now. There's definitely some that are on the higher end of that. There's definitely some that are on the lower end of that, but that's probably the median of where everyone's falling, because people are buying technologies. And again, think about all the technologies that have just spun up. Like here you got You got a bunch of us going, like we rebuilt our entire platform over the last 3.5 years to meet this need that we thought was coming. And thankfully it did, but like when you think about that, people, they don't know what they don't know. And then there's a lot of people that are also panic buying right now. They're like, we just need something, right? And they might buy something that has crappy data and they don't know it has crappy data, but at least it gives them a graph that they can show their boss and says, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what we want to do. What you're going to see here is that there's going to be a lot of companies that come and go, just like there were in the SEO world, right? And you're seeing massive consolidation in SEO right now, right? Think about Adobe just bought SEMrush,
Right.
we acquired Content King, now Conductor website monitoring, Bright Edge, acquired Encore. Like you're seeing a lot of these point solutions, starting to really be swallowed up by the bigger companies. And that's what's going to happen in the AI, like the AEO space, right? Is that, you have like, there's like 36 or 37 startups, that recently received funding like over the past 18 months. Some more prominent than others. Two of them have already closed. You'll probably see the majority of them, close once they figure out how expensive this is to actually build and run. And then you're going to have the people that go to the cheaper folks. Then they look under the hood for a year and they're like, oh man, this data isn't really good. This is like panel data. Like this isn't like, data. Because like, for example, like Conductor, like we hook up to the like OpenAI's API, right? Like we get it directly from OpenAI, but most others scrape ChatGPT. And that's very low fidelity data. And people are starting to figure that out. And then you're going to start to see the churn, right? They're going to go out, they're going to look at us, they'll look at Bright Edge, they'll look at Clarity, they'll look at everyone that's doing something AI. And then a couple of them will survive. And again, we want them to survive. We want them to thrive because that's good for all of us. That's a good environment, right? Competition is healthy and that makes all the companies more valuable. So I want the Profounds of the world and the AirOps of the world to be successful, right? Like I wish them well, because that's good for everyone. That's good for the space. But it's going to be interesting because it's moving so quickly and there's so many companies right now that are selling a lot of stuff, that isn't necessarily true. But again, a lot of people don't know because there's not a lot of education out there, which is a lot of what my job is to help people understand like what's good, what's bad, what's the right way to think about things, at least how we understand them today versus, and sometimes Conductor's not the right technology for you. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately there are a lot of people out there that are, like just like in the SEO industry, you're selling the purest form of snake oil now because it's the wild, it's not even the Wild West, it is the wild West right now.
Right.
Yeah, no black hat yet. I
No.
wonder if I could ask you to make a distinction on the executive investment. It seems like it's all technology right now. If you're going to invest up to $250,000 in 2026, it's largely for one or two platforms to help your team get stronger at this with this new channel. They're not hiring there isn't a huge cohort of people they can hire to do this work. So they're not hiring new people. They're asking their existing team to retool a little bit. You're seeing the same thing. I don't want to put the answer in your mouth, but who is this team that's being asked to retool and figure this out?
Yep. No, it's pretty much what we're seeing across the board, right? Because when a lot of people think about Conductor, they're like, oh, we only work with SEO teams. That is not true. Most of the people that are in Conductor, the lion's share are content teams. We work with a lot of content teams, a lot of technical teams, a lot of just general digital teams. SEO is a cohort and a very important cohort to us. Don't get me wrong, but like we're vastly more in with content, digital teams, and technical teams, just due to how many products we have. So when we go, like something that was surprising to me was like, you go into a huge company and you're like, so, okay, you have like one or two people that are not traditional SEO or search people. Maybe they're typically content people or digital like generalists that are running this. What do you want us to do? It's like, I want you to upskill my people. And then once I can see what my existing team can do, then I'll consider hiring somebody. And that's what happens. And a lot of what I do or help companies do is build these programs, within their organization, enable people across a year, 18 months. And then they get to a point where they're like, okay, we're pretty self-sufficient right now, but now someone needs to steer the ship. Conductor, like my team, the professional services team, it was the person steering that ship for the first year, right? But I don't want to work with you forever. You should be able to do this yourself. Like I'm the weirdest service guy on the planet because I start my pitch with, I don't want to work with you in 2 years because I want you to do this yourself, because that's the right way to do it. And that's when they go and they say, maybe I should hire someone or what I've seen happen also, Joe, is that some person that we've been working with enjoys it so much that they'll raise their hand and they'll take on the responsibility responsibility and they move an internal resource into that role. And it's a tremendous opportunity for SEO professionals, and this is going to open up a whole new job market because it's a unique skill set. We're uniquely set up to handle all of this and to understand all of it. But that's what I'm seeing right now. A lot of people, they want to upskill their internal teams first and see where they're at, and then they hand it off to someone. And maybe there is a search person there, but they usually need help in getting the whole thing up and running.
That definitely tracks with how we were using Conductor Razorfish. A lot of it was around content teams.
Yep.
Looking for content decay, all that sort of stuff, which is maybe a good segue into the survey question around impact of these AEO, GEO efforts. And one of the things that was sort of striking to me was that I think it was over 70% of respondents said that the impact was significant or that it was advanced or very advanced. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm always like, well, how can it be advanced given that it's such a new thing? You know what I mean? But the challenges remained relatively, I don't know, basic's the wrong word, but it was like, how to create more optimized AEO like content, which seems like lower on the end of advanced. So just curious about like, is there like a maturity gap between what people think is advanced versus what folks are actually doing? Is that why that sort of nuance is there?
I think so, right? I think this is an education and understanding thing, right? Like, I think they feel it's a huge impact. It's because that's all anyone is talking about, right? It's like, hey, like we are having a huge impact because we brought this team in and we're doing a lot of activities and we feel that our visibility has increased. And we have a tool that tells us our visibility has increased. And if that's the case, good for them. Then maybe it has had a big impact. But I don't think anyone, like no one is an AEO expert yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like no one is. Like I have all these people who tell me, it's like, well, I'm an AEO expert. I go, really? I was just like, you're an AEO expert? This has existed for like 24 months. I was just like, that's crazy. Because it took me like 10 years to become an SEO expert before I was even comfortable saying that. I was like, wow. I was like, because I would never tell someone I'm an AEO expert, right? Like I'm a search expert, but like I am learning about this with everyone else. But I think that's like, I love the confidence that they feel that something great's going on. That's awesome. But I also believe that it's probably just like an understanding educational thing that might be, that might be a little bit,
The other thing that I thought was really interesting was Eli Schwartz contributed to the CMO report, and he predicted something to the effect of there's going to be some sort of update that slaps maybe, low value AI content. And I think we actually just saw the first instance of that with the latest algorithm update, right? Where these listicles, sort of self-serving listicles, are basically getting crushed. Do you foresee more of that coming? Is that sort of the first instance of what we could potentially expect with future algorithm updates around that?
Absolutely. Like we are only going to see things getting slapped down more and more and more. Again, it comes like the listicle thing is actually a perfect example, right? It's like everyone that was in search has amnesia. It's like everyone talking about creating like a markdown file for their site right now, right? It's like that's not necessary yet. It might not ever be necessary. Maybe if like when the web MCP thing goes out that Google and Bing have been talking about, but that's not like a accepted protocol yet. And like this is just amnesia, like people forgetting that like if you do that, that is cloaking. You're just literally making another version of your site. It's a form of cloaking. Like you're going to get hit down. Lily Ray was talking about this for like a year. She's like, this listicle thing, this is going to get nerfed. And for lack of better words, and it got nerfed in the last one, right? And this is like, again, like, and every single person or site, not person, every single site that I see that is just dumping AI content onto their site without it actually having a human in the loop or any sort of unique POV or anything like that, all of those sites are tanking right now. They are all tanking right now. And that is because their AI is going to move infinitely quicker than Google's algorithm did throughout the 2000s. Right. Because we were able to get away with a lot of stuff for a very long time. Right. And it took until really when Panda and Penguin came out, like those updates, that's when Google really, really started to police the algorithm. Right. AI moves lightning quick. Right. Like it's going to find all of this stuff and it's going to knock it down very quickly. So we're only going to see more of this. And you're even seeing it with Google right now from a scraping standpoint. Like collecting ranking data has become incredibly more difficult past the first 20 results. And that's because Google is actually starting to sue vendors that are like scraping them at large and then selling their data. This is what's happening right now. Like Google is going to stop people from doing this. AI is going to help like understand when people are doing shady things a lot quicker. And we're only going to see more of it. It's going to be more intense, but it will be better for the web, in my opinion, because only the people who earn it, which is what we've all been trying to get to all these years, right? Really only like AI will make that possible. Not now, but like, 3-4 years from now, I believe that people who like earn it will be the ones that actually show up in all this, because AI is going to be so good at picking up when people are doing garbage tactics.
Yeah. I think one thing about the data or the analysis itself that sort of speaks a little bit to that is the NerdWallet finding. They produce a lot of excellent content, getting
Great
crushed
content.
from an AIO perspective, but within LLMs, they're excelling.
great.
So I was curious about your thoughts there. Like, what do you, maybe to back up? So I think one of the things that a lot of the clients that we're talking to about is expanding content, being more descriptive, adding FAQs, right? And an effort to compete better in the LLM side of things. Do you predict that some of these competitors that have the brand, like a Chase Bank, for example,
Yep.
do you think they'll be able to compete better through those types of tactics? Or is this something that the LLMs are just going to naturally catch up to as it relates to like brand entities?
Yeah, I think, like NerdWallet's like a contradiction, right, of what you typically see, right? You do well in organic, like in traditional organic, you typically do well in, LLMs, right? In AI search. So they're a little bit of a contradiction. And again, like their team creates great content. Their site's a great site, but I like something that I've been saying for over 2 years now, and something that I've noticed in Google, and this is just in Google. I think this is a Google thing versus an LLM thing. Google is clearly looking to the actual organization or hospital system or financial institution versus these content hubs or content like, aggregator sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that those sites are not well maintained, like them, Bankrate, all that, NerdWallet, all of them. It just means that I think Google, like if you ask them like, hey, I want to compare a credit card, either A, Google just wants to do the comparison on the SERP, like right on the SERP themselves, or B, they want to send you to the actual financial institution that gives you the card. They don't necessarily want to send you to an affiliate site, which is largely what those sites are. They're affiliate sites, right? And I think that that's a crackdown on the affiliate model, which they have been doing more and more over the years. Now, in LLMs care about authority, right? Like they want to know that, I always say, like, from what I have experienced or what I see in the data, is that LLMs care about real people having real conversations about your brand. Like they're looking all over the internet, Reddit, Quora, whatever. They want to know that your brand is real. They want to know that people there know what they're talking about. And it doesn't surprise me that something like NerdWallet does well there, because they have all of the experts writing that content. All of their content is from like financial analysts and,
Right.
like real people that write it, which is why it's surprising, that Google doesn't like them. And I think this is a Google thing that they are promoting. See it in WebMD. WebMD, if you look at their performance over years, like Healthline, like all of that, all of those big sites are like down by like 50-60% year over year, like from like a top 10 visibility standpoint and just overall. And I think that's because Google favors the actual institution, whereas LLMs are still, it's really about authority. And NerdWallet deserves authority because they have people there who work in the industry that are writing these great articles. I think it's just Google looks at it differently these days. That's just what my gut's been telling me over the last couple of years. But to answer your question about someone like Chase Bank, they're going to do good in both, because again, they're the brand. LLMs love the brand and Google loves the brand. Google's always loved the brand. But I think LLMs, it's a lot more even playing field on the LLM right now, where a much smaller, like if you're looking at like payment processing, right? Like Stripe can very much go up against American Express right now. Like PayPal can very much go up against MasterCard. Like no problem. They'll all show up there. But again, in Google, that has been a shift over the last 2 years that I've been tracking. Actually, on my webinar 30/30, like I talk about it like often. I'm like, hey, and actually the audience actually told me to stop like talking about it every week because I was becoming a little obsessed with it. And I was like, all right, I'll do it every like 3 months, And so I still bring it up, and everyone's like, I'm like, come on, But it's like it's this thing that I truly believe is what's happening.
Every 3 on the 30/30. That's
like every time I'm just like every time I bring it up, I go, and I always brace her, and I'm I'm going to talk about NerdWallet and WebMD for a minute.
Can I ask you to make a distinction maybe, or just clarify that point? The other big winner that came from that benchmarks report was Zillow. So completely different industry. We're talking about real estate now, but I mean, that's not an affiliate type of business. Zillow announced that partnership with ChatGPT back in October. And I think the time frame of the benchmarks report starts around October.
Yep,
So
right around there.
I don't know if you thought about this at all, but was that like there's a Zillow app within ChatGPT, and I wonder if there was a boost Zillow got from that. Have you thought about that at all?
Maybe. Like again, like the partnership thing, like OpenAI does a lot of partnerships, right? Like they like when like some of their first ones were with like the Wall Street Journal and like New York Times, because they were trying to fight back against like fake news and like trying to create an environment where publishers can exist online, which I think is very noble. But ultimately, I don't necessarily like, did they get a boost for the partnership? I'm sure they're favored, in the model, I'm sure they're favored because they're a source. They're like a true source. Again, that's really what OpenAI cares about. If we're just talking about ChatGPT, like they care about the true source. And it's like, if someone is looking for a listing that Zillow has, and they believe that Zillow is the best source for that, whether the partnership or not, they're going to show, they're going to go to Zillow and they're going to show it. So it wasn't surprising to me to see that. And Joe, probably a little bit, right? It probably has a little bit to do with the partnership. But ultimately, Zillow is where a lot of people go. They would probably be there. They would probably have those numbers regardless of the partnership or not. But I'm sure that number's a little bit higher because of it.
I was curious about, speaking of real estate, as it relates to AIOs specifically. I think healthcare was around like 50% of queries were triggering versus, maybe just 4% for real estate. Do you... And it kind of makes sense, right? The reasoning behind it. But do you anticipate that increasing over time? Or is it just something that's really difficult for, search engines to get their arms around how to best present that, right? Because it is very visual, picture heavy, house is a house kind of thing.
Yeah. And like, isn't that funny though? That the like YMYL, industries are the highest, financial services and healthcare. Where you think AI, they wouldn't have AI touch with a 10-foot pole. They are the highest by far.
Yeah, healthcare especially.
Healthcare stuff. It's like, it's so funny to me. But yeah, I mean, I think like you said, from a real estate, like if someone's looking for an address, what's an AI overview going to tell them, right? Like just go to the Zillow listing. You can't do anything, with it. Maybe they could show the picture of the house in the AI overview, I guess. I think that like healthcare, I get a little bit because of the amount of questions that people are asking. Like someone's looking for a house. Hey, I'm looking for this house in like I live in Wantagh, Long Island. I'm looking for 18 blah, blah, blah in Long Island. They're just going to show you the Zillow listing, they're just going, all right, go here, go to realtor.com, go to MLS, et cetera, et cetera. But like for something, people who are asking about like, what does healthcare part A mean? What does that mean? People are asking those questions, those real informational queries. That makes sense to me. It's just a little dangerous because I've seen some really dangerous like AI overviews for especially in the financial space, where Google has to be careful that they're not accidentally giving like financial advice to people, because there's a lot of people. It's like, oh, like where, like if you ask it, for example, like where should I get a mortgage, right? Like it may suggest a couple of companies to you. It's like they really shouldn't be doing that. It's like they should just say like, hey, here's a list of stuff. But like I've actually seen them before say like here's a top rated company that you may want to look into. It's like that's a recommendation, right? And if something happens with there, like someone could go back to be like, well, Google told me to use you. It's like, then that's a whole other thing. But like that's why it's funny to me that those two sectors, I understand because there's so many questions in there that people can ask. But I mean, that's true of really anything. And naturally where AI overviews are going to be like, show up like 80% of the time one day, right? Because even in the last update, in our data, they went from like 25% for months, right? It was like they were showing up for 25%. Then the December update hit 45%. And then it went like that. And then the next one, it's going to be 65%. And it's all informational queries, right? And that's why when people are freaking out about their traffic going away, I always tell them like, it's your blog traffic though. Like, cause like you still need the content to be there. You're just not getting the visits anymore. I go, how's your bottom line? Oh, we're fine. We're making more money than we did last year. I go, so why do you care? It's like, keep making the content so LLMs get it. People will find you and buy something eventually. I was like, people are like the obsession with traffic, that's a whole other podcast that I could go down.
Well, I think in some ways we maybe incorrectly trained the industry that traffic was a good thing because it was easier, quote unquote, to generate versus revenue.
Yeah. Absolutely. And everyone's goals are attached to it, right? It's just like,
Right,
hey, like, what's your
exactly.
goal this year? It's like, to raise traffic 10%. It's like, well, traffic's down 30% across the board. It's like, yeah.
Well, maybe so there was a prediction that referral traffic, I think, would be capped around like 20% from LLMs into 2026. Based on data that you're looking at, is there, is that an over or an under at this point so far? I know we're
I
only 2 months in, but
it's an over. Yeah. I don't think we're going to get there. Like, I
yeah.
actually, so every December I do like a predictions thing as well. And I said, like last year I'd said like LLMs are going to be the talk of the town, but there's going to be no traffic. And that's exactly what happened. This year I said, I think it might get to 10%, might get to 10%. And that's only because of the e-commerce economy that might boom, that would send more traffic to your site. That might be where you get your 20%. And like, that might be holy crap. Like that's where this all
Mhm.
starts. But that really hasn't started yet. You know what I mean? Like you said, we're already 2 months into the year, and that's really just getting go. Those gears are just grinding now. And will it be swift? Yes, of course it will be. Once people can get their feeds in, their product feeds in to OpenAI, and however that works, like they're definitely going to do it like immediately. But I think it'll get to like 10%, and I think it might cap out there for a while. But again, the only wild card or unknown for me is how many people are gonna click on those cards that show up in the e-commerce conversation with the LLMs, and say like, well, I want to see like a bigger picture of this, and then go to the actual website, and that becomes where like a lot of LLM traffic comes from.
Got it. Got it. I did want to quickly talk about some measurement things. So I really like the way that AI traffic was positioned as sort of a lagging signal. The visibility piece, the citations, the mentions, share of voice, et cetera, is kind of that primary objective that you should be focused on. And I feel like Conductor is really focused on positioning themselves there, right? Is that fair to say, or is the traffic analysis piece still a core component of what you guys are doing?
No, yeah, I would say that it's a little bit of both, right? Like we'll show you traffic versus, but I think it's like the way we show it is traffic versus your organic traffic, right? It's all in one chart, so you can say, listen, like just look at the comparison between the two, because the two of these things kind of dance in the same circles, right? But on the same breath, like traffic is absolutely a lagging indicator, because you can see it in people's behavior, right? Is that what do
Right.
people do? They go to ChatGPT to do work for them, right? I always use this story of like my wife and I, was our 15-year wedding anniversary this past year, right? She said, we went to New Orleans. She goes, you pick the restaurants. I was like, okay. So I'm an avid Gemini user today, but I was using ChatGPT at the time. This is last October. And so I went, hey, ChatGPT. I was like, give me like, the 10 best rated and reviewed restaurants in New Orleans around the French Quarter, right? That's the work it did for me, because I don't want to go out and find stuff, and
Mhm.
it's like do the legwork for me. And then I also asked it and give me their websites. Because then I came back and then I went to all their websites. I looked at the vibe of the restaurant. I looked at the menus. Would we like this? Would this be cool? Yada, yada. And then what did I do? I Googled their restaurant name, and then I went to their website through Google, or I went directly to the website if I could find it, right? That is what like everybody is doing right now. And that's why like a lot of sites are seeing an increase in direct traffic, because people are using the LLM as a research tool, which is really what it is. And then, and they're doing like all the legwork, all the collecting and all that, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, okay, now I want to go see this brand. Or to me, I was like, now I want to go see what this restaurant looks like, which I'm not going to see in the chat interface. And that's really what's happening right now. So for me, like traffic comes way later. Like people use chat, and then they come back way later, either hours or days later, to your website and find you after they have already found out about you or window shopped you on ChatGPT. Because I mean, that's what happened. Like Google, that was the only place to window shop at that
Right.
scale, right? Now you have all these other LLM interfaces. You can just window shop there, and then eventually, let's face it, people don't, you don't search things, you Google things. People will continue to go to Google, and we're even seeing Gemini start to really take away a lot of market share from ChatGPT. Like over the last 3 months, they took 21% market share away from ChatGPT in
Wow.
the last 3 months. Like Google, like next year, let's say I come back next year and we're chatting about it, I will guarantee you that Gemini will be more highly used than ChatGPT.
We would love to have you on next year. Are you going to do this benchmark report every 6 months? What are the thoughts on the next one?
My guess is that they'll do it at least annually. Given like how fast everything is moving, I wouldn't be surprised if it was every 6 months. I don't know the plans for it yet. I'd have to ask head of marketing. And I also don't want to promise something or else she'll kill me. But I would imagine it'd probably be every 6 months, but at least annually.
Got it. Got it. A couple of rapid fire questions to round things up. So for this one, I'll give you a format and you tell me if it's overrated, underrated, or exactly where it should be for AEO in 2026.
Okay.
The first one is schema markup. I know there's been a whole bunch of debate around this, but
Underrated. I think there are people that, and I get it. I know people listening are like, it's like there are so many sites out there that have broken schema, have missing schema, that they don't understand the benefits that will come today, but even the benefits that will come tomorrow. Like when all these different types of agents are coming to your site and looking at things, schema markup is extremely important. And I think people know it's important, but I still think a lot of people don't pay enough attention to it.
totally with you on that one. All right. The next one, original proprietary research.
That is underrated as well. A lot of people are throwing just AI slop onto their sites, right? Like they don't understand what a good prompt is. They don't understand, like what a good article looks like. And they don't realize that the most important asset that a company has is its wisdom, right? Like you need like a unique POV, imbue your wisdom into your content. That's how you stand out. I can go to ChatGPT and write me an article about running shoes, right? Everyone can do that. How do you stand out? Even if you're a really good prompt engineer, how do you go from a B+ piece of content to an A+ piece of content? It's your company, it's your POV,
Right.
It's your authors, it's your experts. And that's something that a lot of companies are very bad at, in my opinion.
God, I really like that wisdom. A lot of times you say put your expertise in it, but wisdom's different, right?
No, wisdom. Yeah.
I like that.
Use wisdom. Like Seth's high, like Seth's been talking about this for years, and he's right, because that's really what it is, right? Like every time I go and I speak to a group of folks at a company, I go, what's the most important thing in this room right now? And everyone's like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I go, I'm like, and your collective wisdom about and you can use that and put that onto your site and put that on and create content around it. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that does make sense. It's like that. It's a very important piece that people miss.
Yeah. All right. Next one, Reddit presence.
Right where it should be. So like that on the border of overrated and right where it should be. Listen, the Reddit thing is a funny conversation depending on who you're talking to, right? There are some people who do Reddit really well. Like Sonos does Reddit really well. There are some people who have bombed out on Reddit and have made a big mistake, and all of a sudden they get review bombed, and you can really do it wrong. Because again, like if you go on Reddit, you got to have rules. Don't talk about money, don't get into arguments with people, and just provide value, right? If you can do that, and also you're legally allowed to be on Reddit. We work with a lot of compliance-based sites, and companies, but I think it's right where it needs to be. Slightly overrated, though. I think everyone is just like I think people should experiment and dabble in, but everyone's talking about Reddit, and I get it. It's highly cited. I totally get it. But I think people might be overthinking how important it is to the overall picture of this whole thing. I think it's a good experiment for a lot of companies and can be a very good thing for certain companies, especially retailers. But largely, Reddit can be a very dangerous and scary place for a company if you do it wrong.
How do you feel about transcripts from your video?
I think those are right where they need to be. I think people are doing those right, actually. That was something I would have said like a year ago is underrated, but I think people realize that instead of like writing something, I can just talk into something and then I can make a video out of it and then use that transcript, to do many other things. I think people have gotten actually very smart about that as they've realized how important YouTube is to the entire ecosystem, especially YouTube Shorts.
How about LLMs.txt?
Well, I mean, right where it needs to be probably, because everyone is curious about it. I don't have anyone beating down my door, like saying like, hey, Pat, like I need to do this today. People are just asking like, should I do this? Sure. It's not going to hurt you. It probably won't help you in any way unless you have like an internal agent that it could help. But until that becomes an accepted protocol, it's just there, right? And again, it's not going to hurt anything. Go do it. Sure, fine. But I think that's right where it needs to be because it's not really a thing yet. But people are curious about it, but they're not like, I have to do this is like a top 3 thing I'm going to do. If that was the case, I would say overrated.
All right.
Wikipedia presence.
I think right where it needs to be, right? Wikipedia is important. People understand that. Continue to, have a Wikipedia page, number one, and continue to curate it. right? Like it's a very important piece of the puzzle, but I think everyone knows that, right? It's not, I think that really hasn't changed that much. I think people get that Wikipedia is important.
What would be a successful version of the 2027 report? Like, what would that look like? What would you expect to change there?
I would expect retail, like the interactions with retail to change and e-commerce because of the UC, because of the Universal Commerce Protocol, and that becoming more mainstream and more online. Like I would imagine that we would see much more activity around that industry. But also, again, I would think that we would see more traffic coming, more activity coming from LLMs. Not a lot more, but like if we came back next year and it was 1% again, I would be surprised. I mean, I would be like, really? Like it didn't grow at all? Like that would be very surprising to me.
I think it'd also be detrimental to the industry, right?
I agree. I mean, that means that no one's using it. Like that means that, or just it's just flattened out. I mean, and again, that's why like the Gemini increase and the ChatGPT decrease is really like curious, and it's fascinating to watch, because like ChatGPT, their monthly active users just keep going down and Gemini's keep going up. And like what happens to ChatGPT if they God forbid they bottom out, not that I think that's going to happen, but like what if Google really crushes them, like crushes their spirits, and and they just go back to being hey, we're just here to build AGI, which is their point, like, which is also something people forget, that ChatGPT is not a search engine.
Right. All right. Last question. If listeners remember only one thing from the AEO GEO benchmark report, what do you hope it is?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's that number, that 1%. Right? Like just to remember that we live in this hybrid world right now, right? Traditional search, which is influenced by AI, and AI search, which is this amazing emerging opportunity for everybody, right? But just remember that the lion's share of your traffic today is still coming from Google, and don't ignore it, because that's the biggest mistake I'm seeing companies make right now, is that they're not nurturing both. Nurture both. This is going to grow. It's going to explode. Don't get me wrong. AI is going to explode. But we have to remember that this traditional piece, is still a very important piece of the puzzle. And these two are converging right now. And that 1% will turn into a bigger number. It's going to, like, this traditional piece is still going to be here. And you have to make them work together. And just remember that, like, they're going to work together. And even if it's 50-50 at one point, which may happen, that may happen in the future. I don't think it will, but maybe, like, we have to remember that continue to take care of your site from both ways, because traditional search is a fantastic proxy for what's happening in AI search, right? There's no demand numbers in AI search yet anyway, right? So like traditional monthly search volume, still a fantastic proxy to how people are searching in AI search. And these two things will continue to converge and mesh with each other. Just be aware of that number right now. That 1%, that is like, that is something just to take in and hold and say, okay, like this is something I have to pay attention to, but I still have to pay attention to this other thing, because it will be extremely detrimental to your business if you don't.
Well said, Pat. Well said. Well, thanks so much for joining and being so transparent with the data and taking us through it. Let our listeners know where they can find you, and if you're going to be speaking anywhere next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. So I do. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social platform I'm on. I'm on there all the time, sharing thoughts and fun and bad dad jokes all the time. I do a monthly webinar called 30/30, which I go through 30 days in 30 minutes. We have a huge group that comes every month, which I still don't understand why, but I'm blessed with it. I really appreciate the you can come, you can ask me questions. I do audience requested, industry reviews every month. So that's a lot of fun. And come to conductor.com and try a free trial, right? Like, you don't have to pay a dime to try the technology out. Come see if you like it. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly at Reinhart@conductor.com. I'm the easiest guy to find next to Seth, our CEO.
Amazing. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Page 2 podcast. And for the listeners, if you enjoyed the show, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.